I want to briefly go into the difference between the internet when it comes to the connections. And I want to kind of talk about how each connection is secretly tied into a different extraterrestrial kind of like group. Now, most people these days are getting on the internet on the phone, mostly. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cover phone companies, but I could go into like landlines. But there's a big difference when you get on the phone on the internet through the phone line and when you get on the internet through a computer. Now you got to remember the basis of the internet came from what's called BankNet. So the internet, I've talked about this before, came from BankNet. And essentially with the visual view that you see in the Matrix movie with Neo constantly having to get on phones to go in and out of the Matrix, you notice he always has to access some form of communication, if you notice, for him to get in and out of the Matrix. Why? Why was there always some form of an outside form of communication needed for him to travel from the Matrix to the real world? And the brothers, they was building on some stuff yesterday, and they was talking about how the universe is based upon the same grid, a computer, essentially a computer system. And they were talking about how, well, actually, they didn't go into this, but I wanted to add, as a part of that, the human body. How the human body itself is designed as a microcosm of the universe and a mini version of the universe. So in that, you have different ways to connect to the internet. So I'm going to isolate one particular company that's very important when it comes to different levels of monetizing on different commodities on the internet. So what do I mean by that? For instance, you have different phone companies that you can connect through the internet with. AT&T, Sprint, if they still are in existence. T-Mobile, I believe T-Mobile and Sprint merged. Then you have Cricket Wireless, which is actually a part of AT&T itself. So really, essentially, the top ones would be like AT&T, T-Mobile, but then you have something of what's called Verizon Wireless. And that's what I want to get into. See, the internet was designed originally from certain trees. There's certain trees, as I said, trees. Yeah, certain trees that you can go to that are essential in holding the internet, the files. There's certain trees, areas of trees that you can go to in this country and other countries in other areas that were essentially based on trees. This is how the internet, the connection was made. See, people don't, we take this for granted. There's a land connection needed to access the internet. There's certain areas of trees that's very important. So you hear about Silicon Valley and stuff like that, but you don't hear too much about these areas and different areas of trees where when you go into the earth part or the ground or the root or the earth aspect of these trees into the root aspect of where these trees are based at, you get high levels of energy to be able to create frequencies to send communications out. And this was the basis of them creating 5G. It was built on 5G too as well. See, they needed physical places, certain key physical, sacred, geometrical places to be able to establish 5G. So most internet companies, what makes them kind of like infinite, what makes them finite, it kind of outdated. That's what I'm getting at. In this day and time, yeah, a lot of these companies are outdated, believe it or not. They're supposed to really kind of like be owned by one company. What makes them outdated is the fact that our dating and our calendar. See, we've moved into an aspect of are dating to where after 2020, we moved out of the tree aspect of the internet. You notice in the term internet, you see two T's. This is real information. I'm not making this up. I'm not going to go into where these tree areas are, but I will say that one of them is in the Midwest. There's a tract of land along the Midwest covering Memphis, St. Louis, Chicago. In that area, there's groups of trees and even mounds that nobody knows about. All you hear about is California, right? Silicon Valley and shit. But you don't hear nothing about the Midwest, and these are instrumental. If these trees weren't, if these areas were tampered with in any way, it could cause our glitches in our internet instantly. They won't tell you about this stuff, underground glitches. So what's happening now is that a lot of these companies are in debt through what's called monetization. And there's one company that I want to kind of single out and give a pat on the back, because from my research, if you're talking about monetizing, and you guys know I'm really deep into monetizing, and I never really covered monetizing when it comes to companies, like which company you're going to go through to monetize. See, when you monetize on the internet, of course, you have to have a way to connect. So the company that you use is going to determine the way that you monetize. So if you notice, all these companies, like these big companies, they have trees in their names, like T-Mobile, it's a tree. AT&T, you see two T's, two trees. And that's really going into the technical aspect of how they connect. But if you notice with Verizon Wireless, you see no T's. Very important, very important. I've done a little bit of work on Verizon Wireless's network and monetizing. I say I have, a couple of $100,000 in monetization units sitting on Verizon Wireless's network. That much money, and I haven't even touched it in years, and it just quantumly multiplies to where it's aided me to be able to buy into various different networks. Like right now, we got monetization. I'll give you some examples. Like we got over $1 million in AT&T monetization. We got over $500,000 in track phone services. Yes, 13 times the charge. We got over $1 million in T-Mobile right now, just from monetizing, right? We got some, overhead and stuff with that we got to deal with, but we have the least, check this out, the least amount of money in Verizon. Like we maybe only got 100,000 in Verizon Wireless monetization, maybe even 50,000. But that little 50,000 makes so much money daily because it multiplies. When you monetize and they don't cash you out, what happens is that if you monetize on a network, you get to a certain level, and if you're not cashed out, it doesn't go away. If you're not following and track it, which I've learned how to do, you can follow it through the stock market and it can multiply itself. And I'll say this, out of all the so-called millions that I made on AT&T and these other networks, that wireless went away, it multiplied several times. And pretty much what I mean by that is that the money that I had at AT&T at some point was visaed out and went into other businesses and other investments. So even though I say I got $1 million wrapped up in AT&T, I would have to, when I I do have an AT&T service right now that we monetize on the side, but I have to prove that because that money essentially went into other investments on the stock market because it was invested at AT&T in several trees. And there's certain points where trees are offset, is where I'm getting at. In billing cycles, there's a certain amount of days where trees get offset. For instance, if a one drops in any sport or any 0 to 1 binary code, there's a particular time where a one or a tree has a particular time before it's offset. So if a one drops and a 20-day period goes by and no one drops anywhere, that can offset several trees, trillions of dollars, believe it or not. This is when David Brothers was talking about trinary code. This is kind of when you get into some of the trinary code. They can offset trillions of dollars through these in trees, but it's hard to do because you got to hold a one and prove through a 20-day period that no one dropped in any sport and get into trinary code and V's and trees. And I've done it several times. I've seen it and it was V'd out. All my monetization, that's my over $1 million went straight to one area, one team. And then that moves to a different account. And then you just got to follow it from there. And then eventually goes back into the stock market. But what I'm getting at is with Verizon Wireless, because of that V And that Z, don't sleep on those letters that they use to make these cell phone companies. My money in Verizon Wireless has stayed around in that network the longest because that money holds and stays in that network. That's why I want to send it. I've done a lot of work with Verizon Wireless, actually. In 2001, we went to New Jersey with Verizon Wireless and made over $1 million in separate monetization with Verizon Wireless. I want to send a shout out to Versatile Records. Versatile Records contracted me back in 2001, right before 9/11. I'm serious. And they tried to do a ritual. I would have been in 9/11, would have died. Because I got a job with Verizon Wireless in the World Trade Center, a contract, and I had to pass up on it. And over time, when the 9/11 attack happened, I ended up having $1 million in monetization locked up into that because my name was on a contract before that building happened. So I got $1 million locked up into New Jersey and New York because of this scenario that happened with Versatile Records and Verizon Wireless. I'm pointing this out for a reason because this money has matured. And $50,000 that I had wrapped up into a Verizon Wireless network, coupled with a trip that I made working for Verizon Wireless for 1 month, that was probably only worth $100,000, just matured into $1 million yesterday from using the Verizon Wireless network. So what I have to do now is make a way to get back into Verizon Wireless network to start to monetize because I don't have a Verizon Wireless network. So hopefully people that's interested in my little techie work that I do in trading and monetizing, because I got several conscious people that follow me in this, we can make some donations because I want to try to do an experiment and get a Verizon Wireless phone. So if you can donate to 13 Signs Astrology at PayPal, at paypal.com, 13 Signs Astrology at gmail.com/PayPal. We're going to try to raise like a small $300, right? You can donate whatever you want to donate or just from watching this video. And eventually I'm going to get a Verizon Wireless phone service. And then we're going to use this and we're going to help you guys that are subscribed to the channel to monetize through Verizon Wireless as I do it. Because what happens is that any service that I get, once I connect it to my channel, you're connected to what I'm monetizing through if you're subscribed to me. You may only get a small percentage. You may not see a lot from it because you may not have a lot of money tied in with me. But people that are heavily invested in me, they get big amounts of money when I get new services and stuff. Like right now, we got 3 services right now we work with. T-Mobile currently, like actively. T-Mobile, TracFone, and AT&T. But with that V, that's the new thing. Because notice we're in 2022 and I'm pointing this out. You should go check out 19 Keys and I'm going to put this title in their video too because it's still inspired from the research I'm doing with them. And I believe that's why that one dropped, man. I really appreciate you guys. You helped me make, I'm serious. From that trinary code information, I can prove that I made $1 million already from some stuff that happened when like 10 years ago, back in 2000, 20 years ago. In 2001, that 9/11 stuff, 21 years ago, actually, to be exact, from the Verizon Wireless. So I come up with more, if you guys, I know this is kind of hard to understand because I just jump into stuff, but you got to kind of just follow my videos when I talk about 0 to 1 binary code. They're on my channel. I got several videos called 0 to 1 binary code. You can just check them out when I was in Minnesota, Chicago. And that'll help you to jump in and get an idea where we're at now with this thing, based on where I'm at now. So right now, what I'm basically saying is that by me having money in the V aspect of the digital arena, that's going to take us to a new realm of trading. So we're going to get into what it means because we're in 2022, man. And V is going to become capital in 2023. So it's going to be a shitload of money in unlocked in Visa. You guys know what I'm talking about, unlocked. Money that people don't even know about next year. Billions, man. Everybody should be millionaires if you understand this program, I'm telling you. And they like, well, why don't you got the money and why you got to raise money? It's about having that money tied into a bank account as credit. So when people give you money and you set up programs, it's being drawn off of that account to where you still have to earn while you learn. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not just given to you. You have to draw and work off of that account once it's drawn the issue, but the money's there. $1 million in V. So I'll go into the Z aspect of investments next. Namaste.